Okay, so if Kabbalah 1 was your relationship with the Creator, okay, Kabbalah 2 is going to be more like your relationship with other people. Kabbalah 1, we understood why we're here, how the universe works, what our role is. Kabbalah 2 is going to go more into detail. This is when a lot of people phase out, drop out, because it's hard. There's a lot of more work. There's a lot more practicality. And not in a bad way, but you know, as you grow, your challenges grow. So you tend to keep feeling like, I'm not doing it right. I'm not getting it right. So if you feel that, and I know everybody will feel that, I'm gonna preface this again with, I'm teaching this. I'm by no means perfect at this. Every time you go up in a level, your challenges are always as debilitating. So it's not easier. No one is like, ooh, I mastered that one. It's just harder. Okay, so a quick review of Kabbalah 1. You guys remember, we're here to get light. There's ways that we earn it, right? If you're not earning it, you develop bread of shame. You need to have the right vessel for it. If you don't have the right vessel, no matter how many blessings come in, you won't have the container to hold it. You won't have the vessel to hold it. Okay, recap of Kabbalah 1. All right, so into Kabbalah 2. So basically, when we're communicating, okay, before we even communicate with someone else, there's a certain energy. Do you want to come here so you can see me? You're not behind me? Or you're not hat there? Okay, stay.
I'm happy I can hear you. I just was thinking, may not hear you tweet this, so I'll get my stand.
So there's a certain energy. Before we do anything physical, it always starts spiritual, right? So before a baby is conceived, right, the energy of the parents is what draws down that soul. And I'm not just talking about the night of conception, although your consciousness the night of conception is very important. The level that the parents are at spiritually will draw down that level of a child. So the tikkun of the child, the environment of the child, the temperament of the child, all of that already has been, you know, happening on the spiritual level before the physicality even happens. So much so everything else you do, the battle first starts in the spiritual world. So before you're gonna talk to someone, okay? And this is not just when you're confronting someone, this is almost any conversation, right? Because a conversation is give and take. Before you speak to someone, you have to first make sure that you're having that conversation with God. You're introducing the Creator into that. It's not me versus Hannah. I'm talking to God, right? And then God is gonna talk to Hannah through me. Do you get it? So it's almost like you are moving away, all right? So let's say I'm gonna talk to Hannah about something. I have to first see, first, God, should I talk to Hannah? Should I tell her this? Am I the person to say this? Maybe someone else should say this. Maybe it shouldn't come from me. So all of that is first, right? Secondly, you're, okay, yeah, it's from you. You get that like vibe, it's from you. You're gonna talk to Hannah. So now I go up to Hannah. Hannah, you know, I wanna tell you about something. And let's say she's just kind of like, you have to pick up on, she doesn't have the vessel to hear you right now. So if I'm gonna be speaking to her and I'm sharing something with her that she's not ready, willing, able to hear, what am I doing? I'm pouring water into a very small cup. What happens? What did we say happens? It's chaos. It doesn't matter that I have the best of intentions. It's the best advice in the world. It's the most expensive champagne. It's going into a 1 ounce shot glass. She doesn't want to hear it. She's not interested, right? That's a short circuit. Okay, so you don't want to engage in something that's creating a short circuit. And I know a lot of us are like, oh, but I want to get it off my chest. I'm gonna feel better. What happens? It's a strobe light. Of course you feel better in the moment, right? Anytime we do anything reactive, you feel good in the moment. But what happens later on? It leads to a lack of light. It leads to depression, anxiety, chaos, worry, all the other things that come in when you don't have light. Okay?
So, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So, did you miss God's sign when you had the conversation, like, hey, should I talk to Hannah? or
It's
like-
both. So it's not, okay.
you see what I'm saying?
I
Like,
do
you
see what you're
talked
saying.
to God and God said, yeah, do it. Then you got there and you're like, oh yeah, she ain't open.
So she's
to
not
it.
open. So I still have to wait for her. But when it's right, then you can come in,
Okay.
right?
So what if, sorry,
Yeah.
what if you're in a non-reactive state and you have to talk to somebody about something, but you know that they're not gonna take it well, they're not gonna take the information well. Do you still do it to honor your own respect and boundaries, or do you just not have that conversation because you feel like that person will never understand your point of view?
You could place a boundary without going into all of that. But let me finish these four elements and maybe you'll answer your question. Hey! So you first need to feel it out. Is she prepared for it? Is she able to hear it? Okay, so sometimes people want to hear it. Like we know people who are like, yes, yes, tell me, I want to hear it. And then as you're talking, they're just not into it. You need to stop at that point, because whatever benefit you think is coming from you speaking, you're actually losing more in the spiritual realm. And it's very, very, very hard. I'm not going to downplay it, because in the moment you're saying, I need to say this to them. This is important. They need to know this. They need to hear this. But they're not going to hear it, and the damage that it's going to cause on the spiritual level will lead to more chaos.
Sarah, what do you think about before getting to that point where you start talking to them and you see that they're not a vessel, starting with asking permission? Like,
Yeah.
hey, are you open to hearing my opinion about this and that? Or are you open to this
Yes,
discussion?
but sometimes they'll say yes. So even if you ask, you still have to feel it. You know, they'll be like, yeah, tell me. And then they're like, you know, or they don't want to do anything. Like, I don't know how to say it. There are some people that I'm sure we're all friends with that they want to know. They want you to say it, but they don't have the capacity, the facility, the faculty to do anything. You know what I mean? So it's like, what are you doing with this? You're just spewing. You're just pouring water. The other thing that you need to do is, so I'm gonna go back. You have to be sensitive to the vessel, okay? And the mirror, it's always a mirror. Our relationship with people is always a mirror of God's relationship with us. So we want God to be sensitive to us as God's vessel. So you need to be sensitive to everybody else as the vessel when you're communicating, number one. You have to think about what your agenda is when you're speaking to someone, okay? So I'm gonna give an example that happened earlier today. Something happened and I was hurt. I felt hurt, right? And my pain, my lack, my ego, I wanted to tell the person, hey, that's the boundary, because I felt hurt, right? If I spoke from that lack, from that pain, where am I speaking from? I'm speaking from a place of agenda, that I have an agenda for it to go a certain way. I have an agenda. I don't think I'm saying it right. I think I'm combining two concepts. Let me divide it again. One is not speaking from your pain, not speaking from your lack. That's where your Kabbalah one comes in. That's where all the work comes in that you need to do before you have a conversation with someone, okay? Am I feeling reactive? Am I feeling pain? What am I feeling? Okay, you have to neutralize it as much as you're able to, or at least identify it. Second part that I'm trying to explain is the agenda. Sometimes we have an agenda, we want it to go a certain way. We want them to know, I did this. We want them to know that wasn't okay. We want them to know you can't talk to me like that. We want them to know whatever it is, right? Maybe you want it to go a certain way. Maybe you're putting Kabbalah books in the bathroom for your husband to see because it'll make you have an easier husband, right? Maybe whatever it is, we always have an agenda. An agenda is not a dirty word, but we do need to be aware of it because you're not the one steering. You have to be a channel. When you're aware of it, you neutralize it. Okay, I'm gonna take a break here because I feel like this is a good place to interject. Do you guys have the handout? Okay, I didn't print any. Who has it? Can I hold it up? Okay, so we wrote over here.
In the chat.
Yeah. So basically this is the handout. We have 3 columns right here, okay? We have our body, here, our body, we have our soul, and we have this area in between, okay? This area in between, it's not a physical place, but I'm gonna refer to it as if it's a physical place, just so we could understand it, okay? I want you to imagine it like a membrane. But again, I want to be very clear, it's not a physical place. That membrane between our body and our soul is where our tikkun lies, okay? So we all understand that our body is purely physical. And we understand that our soul, like we said in Kabbalah 1, is part of the endless. It's part of the Ein Sof. It's part of the tree of life. It's part of God, right? Our goal is to connect our body and our soul. When we have epiphanies, when we have those aha moments, when we're feeling fulfilled, what is really happening? We have that glimpse where our body and soul is connected. Why is pause so important? Does anybody remember what happens when you pause?
You got blessing.
Connect to the light.
Yeah, what'd you say?
Connect to the light.
Yes. How? So this is the coolest thing. When you pause, you're freezing Satan. You're piercing through your tikkun. You're pausing it all and you're like kind of making like a tunnel, okay, between your body and your soul. Okay? It's almost like all that tikkun doesn't exist. So when you're communicating with someone, when you're speaking with someone, kind of like visualize that. You want to put you aside. You don't want your communication to come from your pride, your control, you're like all of that stuff. You don't want it to come from your baggage. Remember our tikkun that we carry from lifetime to lifetime? So when you're raising your children, you want to raise them with the light speaking through you, not coming through your tikkun, not coming through your issues from lifetime to lifetime, your relationship with your spouse, with your friends. Anytime you talk, you want we see those memes where it's like the mom coming out of the child's mouth. You want it to be the light coming out rather than your baggage. So that's pause. Whenever you pause, you're breaking through. When you're speaking to someone, be mindful of that too. So you put your ego and yourself and whatever you want aside. And when you put that aside, you're making a channel of yourself so the right words come out of your mouth. Good? Yeah.
So, okay. So if you, let's say, have thought about it and you know that you don't have an agenda with the conversation and you kind of are like, not indifferent about it, but you're not
Yeah.
like, is that a safe
That's
like,
very good.
zone
Yes.
of knowing,
Yes.
okay, like what
Yes.
I'm saying, because you don't care one way or the other what happens, right?
You have to,
an agenda.
yes, recognize it.
Think like.
But
there's
if you
an agenda.
recognize it, you neutralize it. And you have to be okay with it going either way. So let's say you're gonna talk to someone about something and you want, when you talk to them, to have peace. You have to be okay if peace doesn't happen. You have to be okay if they don't agree with you. If they don't do that thing that you're talking about, or they don't, whatever it is, you have to like completely nullify this middle part.
Is it selfish for them for my agenda, for them to know how I feel? Is that coming from a place of selfishness? That's my only agenda, is for them to hear my point of view.
Are they capable to hear your point of view? Do they want to hear your point of view? Did you first do spiritual work to get to that point? Because otherwise you're just dumping, right? And someone was triggered when I used the word dumping, so I hope no one takes offense to it. But the goal is not to just say it, because they might not. You want them to receive it, right? You want to always give in a way the other person can receive.
Because if you just dump, then your agenda was to get it off my chest.
Yes, they have to have the vessel for it.
What if they're too young to have the vessel?
That's one of the factors.
So then you just never say anything?
No, you say it on their level. You say it the way they can.
How do you know how that is?
Your kids?
Like, for example, yeah, like last night, he was upset about something and it was just very ungrateful. And then it sparked 9. And it sparked like a whole 45-minute argument. But he was completely missing the point. So we were just going in circles
So if you see that he's not able to hear you,
He's not.
then at that point, it's not the time to talk. Take a break, maybe at a later time, come back, but not in a way of, let me explain it to you. I was really upset. In a way where you feel like it's for his growth.
It is for his
The
growth.
purpose, and thank you for that segue. The purpose of all of this is unity, right? The purpose of Kabbalah 1 was for us to be unified with the Creator, right? When we have relationships with people, what is the purpose? The purpose again is to remove the space,
Okay.
right? So when
Yeah.
you're speaking to him, the goal is he did something that maybe created space. You're going to speak in a way for him to understand if he's able, and if he's not, maybe you wait and you do it in a way where he can, or you wait for a time where he can, but it's not coming from like,
What if it's just not like he's mentally not capable because his brain isn't there yet? But then you can never not say anything. Like,
you'll plant seeds and you'll work your way up.
Okay.
You plant
So
seeds
it's
and
like
you
a
say that,
process.
yeah, there's always a way to say it to every age kid where they could digest it.
which I haven't figured out yet.
Yeah.
Sarah, if we fight with funny enough, I literally had an argument with my sister before class.
Yeah.
And we never fight. We got into it. She hung up on me, and she wasn't hearing me. So what do I do now, though? If she's not capable of taking in what I'm trying to tell her, where do I just leave it?
I'm gonna answer this with another comment. So there was this one video that I saw years ago of like the Dalai Lama, and it was something similar where a girl came and said to the Dalai Lama, I got in a fight with, I don't know who it was, my sister something, and he said 5 words, okay, really slowly. He's like, you have to love your sister. And it's like, it went viral. It got millions and millions and millions of views, right? And we know people have all this great content that feels way more full than that, and it doesn't get those views. It doesn't reach that. The difference in those things are because the Dalai Lama was connected. He was speaking through his soul. He put himself aside. So the 4 or 5 words that he said penetrated. And in that video, the girl who heard it, and I was like, she started crying, like it moved her, right? So when you sit there and you do the work of, why did this happen? What's my story? Why is it coming up for me? Why did it happen right before class? And you get all of that there. And then you approach your sister, and I'm not telling you when or how, that's for you to figure out, but you come with the mentality and the consciousness that you're there to remove the space. It doesn't matter who's right? You're there to remove space, because space is where Satan gets in. I always imagined the wrap around the CDs. Remember, it was impossible to tear open, but with the smallest pinprick, you could. Do you even remember CDs?
Yes.
With the smallest pinprick, the whole thing would unravel. So if our goal first, before you do anything with her, is to remove the space within you, between you and God and whatever's going on, and then remove the space between you and her. And it's not, I was offended, you did this, I did this, I was right, you were wrong. And it's hard because sometimes the other person isn't seeing it like that, so you keep getting drawn down to that physical level. But as much as we can, we just have to operate on the level of the 99. And trust me, it's so hard because we're physical beings. It's so hard.
No, I don't mind her labeling me or telling me I'm wrong. That's fine. I'll let her. But at what point do we then move? Do I just allow her to label me as wrong and just say, okay, I'm wrong, even though I know it's not? Do I just let it?
What is your nature?
It's not about right or wrong.
Yeah.
It's just about me saying, hey, can we just try something different? That's all.
So when she's ready and she's calm and you're able at a different time, try to have that
But
conversation.
if not, can I just accept it and say, okay, I know how I feel like it should be, and I'm not gonna get that. It is what
As
it
long
is.
as you can do that and still keep that
Okay.
closeness with her.
Okay.
If you're doing that in a way to shut down and like,
No, I can't
Yeah.
do that. I can't. Otherwise, I build a bridge.
okay,
I
great,
need, like,
great,
clarity.
great. As long as that consciousness
Yeah.
of closeness is always there. Like for instance, I tend to shut down. I tend to not want to have the conversation, and I'll just shut down, which for some people might be proactive because they like to like confront, but it's not drawing close. It's not bridging that gap. It's not it's not eliminating the space.
Knowing what she knows now, if she chose to just apologize to the sister in order to keep the closeness, because if it really doesn't matter if she's right or wrong, which would that be an effective method to bring
If the
about
sister needs an
unity?
apology, if that's where it's headed.
No, I'm just using that
I
as
did
an example.
spiritually. My higher self hugged her higher self. I did that on the spiritual
Yeah.
level. I sent her love, and we'll be okay. But I was just wondering if it's accept I'm wrong, even though I'm not. If that would be something to do, but it
You
won't
have
lead
you have
clarity
to
from
see where it is for
Right.
you.
Right, and I will. I'll sit on that for a bit.
You know, like sometimes I'm the kind of person that for peace I'll just be like whatever. That's reactive.
That's not.
What should you
That's
be
what I'm
like?
saying.
That's reactive. It's past, yes. At some point you have to put the effort of putting that boundary or whatever and saying it's not whatever, this was not okay, it can't go forward like this, but with closeness and you know what I mean, like respect, not to be like not for it
So
to
being
come.
like whatever is a bit avoidant.
It's avoidance.
And
And
it
what is it
creates
coming from? It's coming from, I don't know what it would be for here for me, but it's coming from like maybe wanting to be approval, liked, not to, you know, cause a, whatever, make someone disappointed in me. Whatever it is, it's coming from a reactive place. It's not coming from a higher power.
What if it's coming for the sake of peace? You know what the other
Yeah.
person
That's
is
your
capable
agenda.
of.
You have to figure that out.
Yeah.
You have to, it's personal. And each situation is totally different, right? So maybe with like a friend, it's one way. Maybe with someone you work with, it's a little different. You know, maybe this person has a pattern of pushing and pushing and pushing. And like, you're like, okay. And at one point you got to be like, you know what? It's not. So it's,
Are we all going to be tested now with more fights?
you're going to be, yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Ready
You'll be,
for
yeah,
class?
yes. Yeah. And you know what? It's not a bad thing. Michelle works with Maman, so she sees. And I'm sure you pay attention, or at least you hear me say it. We have the same scenario over and over and over and over. And it's kind of like, why am I not getting it? Right? And maybe each time we are getting it, and maybe it's just getting more nuanced and more detailed. And maybe this is the life tikkun that's going to keep on happening until I'm 119, 20 years old, and I'm just perfecting it each time. But each time it's debilitating.
Yes. And can that manifest in different ways
Uh-huh.
in life?
Uh-huh.
It doesn't have to only be through work.
No.
Someone told me it's like a spiral.
I'm so sorry.
staircase
I'm
of-
so happy it's through work and not with my kids and my friends and my husband,
Yeah.
because that would be harder. So I hope to get it right here so it doesn't keep encroaching. What were you gonna say?
You know, there was a girl in our community who was recovering from bulimia, and she was telling me about her journey, and one of the therapists told her that, you know, you're going to keep struggling with the same thing, but you have to look at it as a spiral staircase going upwards. So it feels like you're going in circles, but every time you're like reaching kind of like another level of your healing, even though it feels like it's going around, you know?
This reminds me, I know it's kind of off topic, but grief is the same way. We always thought grief was this linear thing, and it's cyclical, but it's cyclical upward. So yeah, beware of your personal agenda, meditate to remove it. Don't come from fear or lack. And another way, and I feel like this is the best way to kind of put yourself in the right place, like not foolproof, but to get there, put yourself in their shoes. Like really try to feel where they're coming from. You know? Before you speak. So the cool thing about this middle part is all of our tikkun, there's 4 categories of it. Does anybody remember? You're nodding. Do you remember what it corresponds to?
I feel like I have every part of that.
We all have every part of it. We all have every part, but it corresponds to the astrological signs. So it's fire, air, earth, and water. So we all have all of it, right? Like, and we can do a class on each one. So like, for instance, if you think you don't have ego, like, oh, I don't have ego, I don't care. We can have an entire class and you will see how you have that too.
So what's the last one? So it's fire, earth, water. What's
The last one is earth.
First one's fire.
First one is fire. I can't remember number 2 and number 3. Let me check my notes.
But we all really do have it, right?
We
Because
have
it's
we
our
have
sun sign, our
all
earth,
of it.
right?
We all have all of it.
Yeah.
We all have all of it. And depending on what your tikkun is, you're going to be born under that sign.
Oh, wow.
Level 2 is air. Air. Speech is air. I always forget. I have a
Again, the order.
fire, air, water, earth. Very cool, right? So again, that goal, and I feel like it's kind of nice to have that visual, is just to remove that space, remove the space between yourself, like within yourself, to cleave to the creator, to become one, to attach yourself, and then remove the space between people. And you do that by spiritual work and that pause. Again, you also want, when you speak with people, for it to be like, remove yourself, remove what you want from them. Like, you don't care what they think of you. It's not for approval. It's not for them to like you, not like you. Once you negate yourself, then it's kind of like you're a channel, and they will hear what they need to hear, right? Because it's not you speaking ever, right? Because none of us really exist, right? We're just kind of like puppets in that person's reality. What happens is you'll be that messenger from God. Does that make sense? Kind of? Okay.
Can you repeat it a little?
Yeah. I'll give you an example. So I have this new amazing friend who's Christian, who I love. Her name is Elizabeth. I'll call her Sister Elizabeth. And she'll say things that it's like, oh my God, that's exactly what I'm going through right now. How did she know? She didn't know. She's just enough of a vessel, right? That the messages that I need to hear from God are coming through her. Does that make sense?
What a beautiful place to be.
But all of us can be that, right? For each other. We all try to, like, that's why when you talk, you don't want it to come from you. You don't want it to come from my hurt, my ego. You want to kind of like step aside to it, have that connection, recognize it, so then the words that come out are exactly what they need to hear. An example is Rabbi Ari, and Rabbi Gordon had this too. When they speak at Shul, okay, when they would have their sermons, every person feels like it was for them. Like,
I
oh
was
my,
actually thinking of him. I mean, like, American, like, yes, he's a man of God. That I can't even explain how many times I see him preparing in the morning. Like, Shabbat morning, he gets up early and he's just like in a state of like, what do I need to say? Like, what needs to come through me? We all stay awake. And people come up to me all the time after Shabbat. Exactly what he said. I was going through and everyone in their own way. I'm just like, it's pretty amazing.
like how could it be? How could
he
it
doesn't
be?
even know. He's just like, I just was like trying to be an open vessel. I opened the books and I'm like, just put through me what I'm supposed to say.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's not, I'm gonna tell them this.
No.
I hope they like me. Because the second you go there, you're now in the physical world, and what are you doing? You're taking from your audience. So whether they like what he says or they don't like what he says, he's just a channel and it goes through him. He's not taking from them.
Sarah, does this go back to Kabbalah one where we said like everybody was predetermined in your story? So like the people you meet and the things they say, it was like supposed to hear, you know what I mean? Like you run into someone in an elevator, you have small talk, but
Yes.
what they change really changes your
Yeah.
path on what you were gonna do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's that.
Yes.
So even though it was just a conversational one-time meet,
Yeah.
what they were saying, okay.
Yeah. But you also remember that as we do our spiritual work, we could level up or level down, which creates a whole nother universe, right? It's the whole thing of the metaverse.
So do you think listening to what people have to say and actually taking it in helps you level up? Or are you when you tune them out and you don't want to hear it, you're staying in the same level? Like, do you, when you, like you said, like make sure the person is open to listening to you
So should you also
So
be
should you
open?
always try to
Yeah.
tune in because that helps you level
Yeah,
up?
because you
or
don't- you wanna
are
hear the
are you
message.
also leveling up by not listening because maybe what they're telling you is not really what's gonna work for you in your life.
I wouldn't look at it as what's going to work. I would look at it in terms of if someone is telling you, hey, you know, you do it this way, I don't like it. You know, and our biggest criticism to that is, I don't like how you said it to me. Like I tell my husband all the time, I'm like, I'm happy to listen, but I don't like how you're saying it. How you're saying it, and he's not going to listen to this, thank God, but how you're saying it is also part of the tikkun process. Because it doesn't matter if you don't like how it's being said. You know what I mean? Like, yes, there should always be respect. I'm not saying that. But don't disregard the message because of how it's being said. But I don't want you to take it to a place where you become like, don't have your own boundary for certain things. Do you get it? You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
But yes, if someone says something, maybe there's something there. Like if someone says to me, like, I don't know, Elijah in the car, I made him lunch and he threw the whole thing away before school. And then texted me before I got there at like 7 a.m. when like there's chaos happening. You're the worst mom. I hate you. I wish I had another mom. Okay?
He can help me, that'll straighten him out.
Oh, my daughter did that too.
I have to hear, I could be like, even internally. But I feel like the message for me, and even if it's like somebody else, it could be a work thing, could be anyone. What is he really saying? It's not the words. It's never the words. It's the energy behind it. And that's why it's easy with little kids. You're like, okay, whatever. But we have to remember that with everybody, it's never the words. Another example I'm going to give with that. I remember when I was a teenager, okay? I don't know, you just cry sometimes when you're a teenager. My dad would come in my room and he'd be like, what's going on? And then I would start saying stuff. And I'm like, but that's not really why I'm sad. I don't know what I'm saying. And he would just be like, it's okay, keep going. And I see my teens doing that now. And sometimes the other teen says to this teen, that's not why you're crying. And I have to like remind myself and everybody else, the words don't matter. It's not the words.
Wow.
You're tapping into the soul of the person, right? You're tapping into what else is happening. So if someone is saying something to you, they say you're mean, you're selfish, you're this, you're that, whatever it is, you should do it this way, you should do it that way. Hear it. Look within. Maybe it's a message for you. You'll decide yes or no.
Sometimes I find that people, you know, you said like, oh, when it's a child, you know, and then we're all adults and people have their inner child stuff coming out. And sometimes they're saying something and it's coming from, you know, they're just finding a safe space to let out.
Yeah, it's their own
They're
tikkun.
frustrated. But are you supposed to look at, like, so sometimes I'll be like, okay, this isn't about me, you know? But sometimes I'm like, when you know it's coming from like a lacking place, are you still supposed to look inside yourself and be like,
Okay.
what can I learn from this? Or can I just be like,
A little bit of both. So if it triggers you, then you have something there, because otherwise it wouldn't hurt you. If you don't have that cavity, then it won't hurt.
no, it doesn't hurt. I'm just like, you're hurting.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. I guess every situation is different.
And maybe it's the patience to like hear them when they're hurt. Like, you know what I mean? There's always something behind it. But yes, a lot of times any more questions? Yeah.
Wait, didn't say something? No. It's just, sometimes it's hard because like you know, some people will talk to you and they're not looking at your message. Like when you're, you know, when you've gotten to that point where like,
Because they're not
I'm
ready.
sure you go through that a lot.
Yeah.
But I go through that, but it's just.
They're not ready to hear what you have to say.
No. I'm talking about like you being on the receiving end. Like you know how you want to be open when other people, you want to read other people, but other people aren't reading you either.
Yeah.
So I'm going to emphasize again that it's so important to remove the space. Okay, remove the space within yourself and remove the space between you and others. Wherever there is space, Satan will enter. Okay, so let's go through a practical example. let's say you got in a fight with your spouse or with a friend or with your sister, and you know what? I'm going to teach them a lesson. I'm not going to talk to them anymore. Right? What does that sound like? Does that sound like a good idea?
No.
What happens when you do that? Space. I think I said this in another class too. Great. Satan's like, oh, there's space between them. Let me come inside. Let me get in her head a little bit. Let me go in her Rolodex. Let me see what her kids are up to. We'll add some bullying in here. We'll put some FOMO over there, right? Anytime you create space, you're bringing in an opening for Satan to come in. So now let's say you got in a fight with your sister or whatever. You can take the space that you need. We need to go through a process. We're humans, right? There's a process we have to go to. But the end result, your consciousness, always needs to be for unity. It doesn't mean be their best friend. It doesn't mean be close to them. But, oh, okay, thank you. But for unity, right? And when you have that consciousness, you know, it goes differently.
Can you pray for them, or can you?
Sure.
Like, is that?
Yeah, of course you can. Of course you can.
Even though it's someone that's always hurt you, or someone that has always
You
spoken
can-
negatively about you, or has had bad intentions.
You don't have
for
to
you,
talk to them ever again. But you
but
can't
you
have
to
that.
a consciousness of unity.
Yes. And trust me, it's hard, especially when you've been hurt. It's hard. But also when someone offends you or hurts you or betrays you, right? What is it? They're touching that cavity in you.
Right.
And it's this opening for you to get so much light. Right? And I know I'm not saying allow it to happen, but recognize that's what's happening and kind of move on from there.
How do you differentiate between space and pause for them?
Okay,
You
so,
don't reactively say, oh, you blah, 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 blah.
okay. So, let's say I'm hurt by someone. Someone was rude to me, disrespected me, whatever, said something, whatever. Let's say someone hurt me. I don't have to hold that grudge. I don't have to hate them. I could understand that this came from their tikkun. This came from their lack. So they did this. It sucked. It was hurtful. It was this. It was that. But with all of that pain, it was only hurtful because it touched my cavity. It was there for my growth. It was there for my benefit. If it wasn't from this person, it would have been from another person, right? Because it's gonna happen. At that time, this is the lesson that I need to learn. Someone is gonna, I don't know, call me selfish or whatever the thing is. It's gonna happen. I could engage and be like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I'm so upset. Look what she did. How dare she? And maybe that's part of the process too, with one or two people that you trust for you to process. But the end result in your mind has to be, you know what? She did the best she could with her tools, right? If she could do better, she would. She was a puppet of God. God sent her. Remember the thing about the guy who had to get stolen from, right? Mm-hmm. If it wasn't this person, it would be another person, unless you changed your level to not have that. And then just, I don't know, it's not easy, but you get to that place where you're like, okay, like, I don't need to be your enemy. I don't need to hate you. It wasn't you. I think not taking it personally and recognizing it's not that person changes things. Yeah. Let's personify it a little bit. Let's say Chana betrays me. I'm sorry, I'm gonna pick on you. Mm-hmm. Let's say Chana goes behind my back and says, I don't know, Sarah's this, that, and the other, right? And I'm like, oh my God, Chana, I thought we're friends. I thought, like, how could you do that? And I'm hearing from everybody and I'm so hurt and I'm embarrassed and I'm blah, 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 right? If I could recognize that if it wasn't from Chana's mouth, it would have been from Anita's mouth. It would have been from Nina's mouth. It just happened to be her. God kind of picked it from her. And that's between her and God as to why she did that, right?
But you can kind of be upset, like you, of all, let's say we have this.
You could be upset, yeah.
We have this friendship,
yeah.
like, okay, I had to get this message, but from you,
yes,
you know?
And you can mourn that. Mm-hmm. But then at the end, you have to get to that point where, and it may not be today, tomorrow, and it may take years, but it has to be that end result consciousness in your mind that recognizing there's a soul in her, and she did this with the best tools that she had, and she was the messenger of the situation for me, and I wish it didn't come from her, but it did, but it was for my benefit. And I don't hate her. I don't create that space. We're still one. I don't know how else to say it. I'm trying to think of more examples.
You see her as a version of God.
Yes. She was just the puppet. She was just the illusion. It just came through you. It wasn't, I don't know how else to say it. It wasn't Hana.
An extension of God sending a message
so
to you.
close to you, and it's your tikkun, so you
It's going to get closer and closer.
to you.
Yeah. If I don't get it from
it has
work.
an impact the closer the person is to you. Like,
Yeah.
so maybe it had to be that person so that you would
Wake
actually
up.
feel it and care.
Yes. And change. Because if it's someone you don't care about, you're not going to change.
Yeah.
Right? If someone you
That's
don't
when
care,
you're like, your issue.
if someone you don't care about comes and says, you're selfish, da 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 da, you're like, whatever. But when it's like your friends, your husband, your children, you're kind of like, you got to do something at this point. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. It was just, how do you not get Satan to come in the way when you're just giving yourself
Consciousness.
space? Yeah. the
Consciousness. That I'm not cutting her off forever. Maybe I'm taking space for now.
Yeah.
I'm
So
not
what you
I'm not throwing her out. I don't have to engage with her on a daily. I don't have to call her. I don't have to anything. But it's not going to be like I see you and I'm like,
But can you use that person as a positive challenge in your life to grow?
They are. They're
and
your
to give
blessing.
gratitude to them,
They're your
and
ticket
the
to heaven.
differences- The differences we have with
They are. Yeah. They're your ticket to heaven. They really, really
Because
are.
Without them, your life is just like flowing, right? And when they come in and there's a wave, you're
That's
learning
where you're
to
growing.
ride that wave.
That's where your growth comes in.
Huh? Right?
The only place, the only time, remember, that you level up and you can get light is when you earn it. If there's no challenge, there's no light. Your smooth days, you didn't get any light. You're not leveling up. Ching, 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 ching. The money, the spiritual money, that only comes in when you have a challenge. And the harder it is, the more light is behind it.
What if the person is just toxic?
You could create space from toxic people, but with like,
But I don't want unity.
That's your-
I don't
Okay.
want that
the
person in my
toxic and
life.
the unity, you can not have them in your life without it being
Agreed.
yes.
If it's just they're
Yes.
there.
They're there.
They're
They're irrelevant. They become irrelevant.
Yes. And they don't affect. There's
They
no
don't-
negative,
yes.
no positive. They exist, but I don't exist.
But I'll tell you, whatever they brought in your life will come in another way. I'm not saying engage with them, but if you don't work on it and fix it, it'll just come through a different human.
So is accepting them being there and being neutral not already accepting it? Like, what do you have to do beyond that to be like, okay, like it's fixed? Like, you're not cutting. So at what
Yeah.
point do you have to, at what
Yes.
point is it like, I'm neutral and you're not affecting me and, oh, we're friends? Like, at what point do you get where you know that it's not going to still come back to you?
That you don't have residual issues about it? Is that your question? At what point
At
do
what
you?
point do you know? So like, if you're at the point where you're like,
Yeah.
you're indifferent, you're here, you're there, you're
Yes,
not there, you're
yes.
this, you're this, whatever. So you're neutral, you're not being triggered, whatever. But at what point is that good enough where you're like, okay, that's my, I've like kind of worked on my tikkun,
So
or
you're
do you
at
still
ease with that
have to
person?
daily communicate with?
No,
this?
you don't have to.
So,
daily
but that's what.
communicate.
How do you know?
You'll know. When you tap in, your soul knows everything. Your body doesn't know. Your soul knows everything. That's why the whole thing of communication was when you're talking, you're not talking from your brain. You're talking from your soul.
Meditate on it.
You're removing yourself so that it comes through.
Does
Right?
your body tell you where your soul's at? So let's say like you're feeling triggered around someone and all of a sudden your blood is boiling. That's
Yeah.
like, okay, my soul is not healed yet. But
Yes.
your body gives you the signs. Because
Yes.
it's hard to listen to your soul.
Yes. 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 But when you're feeling triggered, yes, you.
Sarah, so that concept of think before you speak not work
Well,
with
what
it?
is the think before you speak? It's pause. It just
That's
means
what you're
pause.
doing.
Yes.
Okay.
As soon as you
That's
put
my
that break.
brain thinking and speaking.
And pausing is so powerful because as soon as you have that 1 second of pause, boom, you're connected. It's immediate.
Okay, I had this conversation with her yesterday. So I truly believe like Kabbalah is life changing, right? So when there's that person in your life that's toxic or triggering, but you offer them to learn Kabbalah, and now, is that an agenda? Is that coming from a place of? But for me, it's a place of I'm very sharing, and when I learn something, I want to share it with people, whatever that relationship is between us. What are your thoughts on wanting to share this or anything that will be
when I first started studying Kabbalah, I was 17 years old, and I felt like I couldn't have relationships with people if they didn't understand this. I felt like you don't get me, I don't get you, we don't speak the same language, it's not going anywhere, right? You have to get to the point where people have their own paths and their own way of learning things. It could be through Buddhism. They're going to learn Kabbalah through Buddhism, right? They'll learn what they need to learn. They'll connect. But
Can
when
I be a
you,
vessel to share?
you could say it,
Okay.
but you
That's
have
all
to be very,
That's
yes.
all I'm asking. Can I share it?
You could share it if they want to hear it.
You can't make them feel shame or guilt.
No, I'll never.
Do they want to
I'll
hear
never
it?
Follow
No
up.
agenda.
I'm not here to call you and be like, "Did you listen to that?"
Even when you share it,
Like, it's not my job to babysit.
even when you share it, you have to be really careful that it doesn't come from,
I'm doing the work here. You
yes.
should too.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Or
Look
make
what
you
I
feel
learned.
good that you helped someone.
Let me tell you, I
think
have the
that's-
best diet ever. I am the queen of the diet. I've mastered the diet. Nobody else knows the diet but me. Let me share my diet with you.
I haven't mastered anything.
No, but you know what I'm trying to
I feel like I
say?
should take Kabbalah 5 more times.
We all need to
It's
take
not
Kabbalah.
from that
Yeah.
place.
But I think it's she's doing it, and I'm just gonna pick you because you're right next to her. If she doesn't do it and Anita doesn't feel good because Nina didn't listen to her, but then if Nina does it and Anita feels good, then that's her agenda, and that's not what we're supposed to do.
You have to not care about what happens.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Because it's up to all of us to take in what is around us, you know. But that's just my question. Like, I think we all know somebody in our lives that would benefit from.
Let me
From
give you
learning a little
another example. If somebody asks, or someone has asked, why do I teach Kabbalah? Let's say I answer, to change people's lives. Is that a good answer?
No, because that's a personal agenda.
It's a personal agenda.
Okay, so that was my.
I want them to be successful and happy.
Why do you?
Is that a good?
They need it.
Is
I
that a
think
good
that's
example?
personal agenda too.
The only reason I teach is because it connects me to God. Whether you guys enjoy it, don't enjoy it, you like it, you don't like it, people talk shit,
So
they
it's
don't
for
talk
your own
shit.
self-growth then.
It's
not.
everything is your self-growth. Everything is your self-growth. Why do I do Mammon? It's my self-growth.
But it's to help others.
The byproduct is to help others. I do it because it connects me to God. Because every single time I do it, I have a platform now to be triggered nonstop in the deepest ways. And thank God it's for there and not with my kids and husband and...
As Chabad people, they like train us like your mission is to help others, change the world. Like
That's
the
your
whole-
byproduct.
They don't tell us that.
Your mission is to connect. When you're connected, the world will change. So I'll give you another thing. I got really mad at Ella for no reason on Sunday, and I yelled at her, and I never yell like that, like ever. And we spoke about how guilt and shame and all of that is Satan, so I had to nip that quickly, and I quickly apologized, and I said, I'm so sorry, but I realized the reason that happened is because I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so overwhelmed that there was nothing left, right? So it's my challenge in balance. It's my challenge to know. And if it's not with Mammon, it would be with, I don't know, whatever a hobby is, or overcooking, or going to the grocery store, or whatever life is. If it's not this, it's that.
How does Mammon, I understand how Kabbalah connects you to the light, like you're taking
Yes.
it in and just kind of sharing
Yes.
it with us. How does it work with Mammon? Is
Okay.
it you just taking
I'll
it
tell
and
you.
it's-
I'll tell you. The same way it works with any job that you have. Any job that you have, okay? Your job is not, let's say you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're a teacher, you're, I don't know, a pharmacist. Your job is not to sit there and count pills. Your job is the vehicle through which those lessons are gonna come to you, right? All Maman is a new channel for me to have opportunities to be triggered. I'm happy to give back, don't get me wrong. I believe it, I like it, I feel, you know, whatever, all that stuff. But that's not I don't know how else to say it.
But while you're being
The goal, if your goal is not to connect to God, okay, nothing will work. No matter how lofty it sounds, your number one has to be to connect to
you're
God.
connecting to God with Maman to help, to be a channel of service for others.
Sure,
Right?
if that happens, yes.
But how are you?
Should I change it? Let's not call it Maman, let's say a teacher. Would that be easier?
No, I
Can I
mean,
give an example?
Yeah.
So like, you know, like these, I don't know, like you think about like a monk or these people who are really connected and they're just being in their own zone, but like naturally you want to be around them. Like, have you ever felt
Yeah.
that pull to certain
100%.
people? And then opposite, there's certain people like just by their being you want to run away.
yeah.
Right? I think that's kind of what it is. It's like you're saying when you're connected, the byproduct is
Yes.
you're naturally like bringing in and like influencing people. Like when I'm around people who are connected, they don't even have to speak.
Yeah.
Yes,
Them
their energy.
being affects me. Like
Correct.
In a
you get
positive
what I
way,
mean?
yeah.
I don't right. So
Yes,
is that weird?
but
Pure energy.
I'm gonna take back the Maman example because I don't want you to think about it as a charity or a foundation or a nonprofit or a giving thing. I want you to think about it like a job, just so you can understand that example.
Okay.
In any job that you have, your job is not really that job.
So let's say I'm a registered dietitian, which I am,
Yes.
and I meet with patients
Yes.
through Zoom to do sessions.
So
with them.
your real purpose is to connect to God through whatever it is that you're doing. So your job is how God will present you with those opportunities, with the patients, with the challenges, with the, I don't know, did they pay you, did they not pay you, now they're haggling, now they don't listen to you, now you have the, whatever it is, right? Your real work is the triggers and challenges that come with it,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good?
Yeah. Thank you.